All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our rental and utility assistance Calvert County community chat, where we're going to discuss the emergency rental assistance applications for Calvert County, how to apply, answer some questions, and give more information. So thank you so much for joining. Just a reminder, everyone is muted upon entry. If you have any questions, you can send them to us in the chat feature, which should be a toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You can also unmute and ask questions at any time. We really want this to be interactive, and we want to address your questions and needs. So please do let us know as we go. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce ourselves. So we have representatives here today from Calvert County Government's Department of Community Resources, Lifestyles of Maryland, as well as Southern Maryland Tri-County Community Action Committee. All these agencies are part of the ERAP or Emergency Rental Assistance process, and we're here today to answer your questions and provide some insight. So first things first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jacqueline Calvert. I'm with Calvert County Government's Department of Community Resources. We're here to meet the needs of the citizens, answer questions that you may have, and we've been overseeing the emergency rental assistance program for about over 6 months now. We've been doing it since November 2020. If you have any questions, you can contact us for rent help at 410-535-1600, extension 2460. You can also visit our website for resources as well, which is www.calvertcountymd.gov/community. And you can email us at community.resources@calvertcountymd.gov. And we're here just to answer questions and help facilitate the process. Next, I'd like to introduce our representatives from Lifestyles of Maryland. So if you folks wouldn't mind giving a wave and saying hi. Hello, welcome. Lifestyles of Maryland is one of our screening agencies for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. They are super experienced and they know what they're doing. And if they'd like to give a quick introduction, please feel free.
Great.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for the introduction. My name is Karay Young. I'm the Assistant Director at Lifestyles of Maryland, and who we have on the line is Sandy Washington, our Executive Director, and Patrice Clay, who is our case manager that will help facilitate many of the financial assistance cases. We are a local nonprofit in Southern Maryland, and our goal is ultimately to help provide sustainability and sufficiency services for those in need. So we are here to help not just with your rent and utility assistance applications, but hopefully we can connect you with other services that will help your entire household. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Any other comments from Lifestyles?
I'm Sandy Washington, as Karay said, and it's just a pleasure to be a part of this and stabilizing housing for people in Calvert County.
Thank you. And I share their contact information on here if you have questions, but we'll go through later in this presentation how to apply for rental assistance, and you don't have to call on the phone. We have a really simple process. And next, I'd like to introduce Southern Maryland Tri-County Community Action Committee, Inc., who you'll see me commonly refer to as SMTCCA throughout the presentation. So without further ado, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I am Shanae Blunt, the Housing Program Manager with Southern Maryland Tri-County Community Action Committee. We too are a local not-for-profit organization. We are based on, we assist residents of Calvert County as well as St. Charles and St. Mary's. But for our Calvert County residents, we are eagerly standing by, awaiting applicants and applications to process throughout the ERAP program, and we are excited to be here. At this point, I think I will hand it off. I do believe our CEO and President, Mr. Michael Young, is on the line as well.
Oh, Mr. Young, you are muted.
I was almost finished. Okay. Good evening, Calvert County residents. Again, my name is Michael E. Young. I'm President CEO of SMTCCA. We welcome you this evening. We encourage you to help us get the word out that we're here to assist. Again, we serve all three counties, St. Mary's, Calvert, and Charles County. Tonight, we're focused on issues relative to Calvert County. We have an array of different services that we will offer all three counties, but we do have some services that are county focused. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to hop right into the meat and potatoes. So what is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or as we like to call ERAP? So Calvert County government is currently processing applications for the Maryland Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which provides temporary rental and utility assistance for eligible renters whose income or expenses have been impacted by COVID-19. This emergency assistance is to prevent evictions and utility turnoffs and is subject to funding availability. Our ERAP program was awarded to the state of Maryland from Treasury funds. Calvert County has just under $2 million in funding for this program. The Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development administers our funding. And Calvert County has been processing rent assistance applications since November 2020. And the good news is if you previously applied, you can apply again for this program. Previous assistance does not prohibit you from receiving this assistance. So I think what most people would like to know is what can ERAP help with? Well, ERAP can provide up to 12 months of overdue rent assistance going back to March 13th, 2020. It can also help with up to 12 months of overdue utility or home energy costs going back to March 13th, 2020. It can provide up to 3 months of current or future months rent at a time. And it can provide up to 3 months of current or future utility costs at a time. And as a whole, each household is eligible for up to 15 months of total assistance under ERAP, and that can be a combination of past due rent and future rent just based on funding ability. So who can apply? Calvert County renters directly or indirectly impacted by COVID-19 due to increased expenses or decreased income, especially those receiving unemployment benefits. So I feel like that's a lot of legal speak and not a lot of what does this mean to me. So being directly or indirectly impacted by COVID could be that you had increased daycare costs because the schools were closed and you had to find a place for your children to be, or you had decreased hours because you had to stay home with your kids because school was closed, or perhaps you were laid off, unemployed. These direct and indirect things could be expenses you increased or revenue that just didn't come into your family, income that you didn't make because of the pandemic, and choices that you maybe had to make for you and your family, or were made because of just the closures that were going into place during the stay-at-home orders. Other eligibility criteria such as income may apply. So that's why it's really good to fill out an application and figure out if you're eligible, so we can provide the best assistance for you possible. So how do you apply for ERAP? Well, we try to make it pretty easy. If you visit www.calvertcountymd.gov/renthelp, you can complete the form, which is to the right. It's probably a little small on your screen right now, with your information, and someone will be in touch with you within 3 business days to discuss your application and your needs and find the program and the funding that's best for you. And when you submit this form, someone, most likely me, will get back to you within 3 business days of next steps, let you know the email received and all those fun items. How often can you apply? There's no limit on how many times you can apply. You can apply for up to 12 months of past due rent and utilities from March 2020 onward. You can apply for future rent utilities 3 months at a time or until funding has run out. And the total months of assistance can't exceed 15 total months, but they can be a combination of any of those items. If you're someone who's not computer savvy and you're not comfortable filling out an online form, that's totally okay. You can call 410-535-1600, extension 2460, for live assistance on the phone Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., where a staff member can help you fill out the form and answer your questions about the program. And landlords, they've had a lot of questions as we go through this. Landlords will be asked to sign a form as part of the application and provide information on where to send payment. Because we want to pay you, we want to pay you quickly, but we have to know where to send it. Payments will come directly from the county, and they'll most likely be a wire transfer unless you request a check. If your tenants need help, please encourage them to fill out the form online or submit their contact information to us, and we can submit the request and reach out to them as well. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions, comments, feedback from our agencies, from people on the line, to see what thoughts and comments they have or experiences, and I can go back to any slide if needed.
Jacqueline.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Janae.
Yeah, Sinead.
So we have had the question raised by landlords. What if in trying to bring the tenant's rent current, what if they are beyond 12 months past due?
So if they're beyond 12 months past due at this point, we can also look at utilizing other funding sources. Our CDBG has ended, but we can look at using county CARES funds and other funding to see how far back. Again, with the COVID impact, it's going to be hard to go past March of 2020. But if someone has a need, let's send them over so we can figure out what we can do to get them at least as current as possible, and maybe look at pooling different sorts of funding to get them current.
Thank you.
Of course. Ms. Washington?
Yes, I want to, could you reiterate a little bit more about the landlords that want to actually start this process if the tenant has not started it?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and I think it's a great step because I think sometimes people are shy to ask for help, but it's easy to maybe encourage someone to get help and reach out to if that conversation's fostered. A lot of people are prideful, and a lot of people have always provided for themselves. And I think COVID-19 has created a really challenging time for a lot of families and households. So landlords can go to the calvertcountymd.gov/rent help site, and they can fill out the form with their tenant's contact information and then click the box. There's a checkbox that'll say, I'm a landlord. And if they select that, then I know that the landlord is inquiring on behalf of their client. And then we can reach out to both you, the landlord, and both to the client to address needs. I think one interesting part of this program is that we pay the landlord directly, but it really is based on the tenant's eligibility. So that's why we really want to work with the landlords and the clients. And it's really great for the tenants to submit the application with landlord support, because then we'll just remit payment directly through a wire to the landlord. Once the county gets an application, we tend to remit payment that's approved within 1 to 2 weeks. So the payment will be there really quickly. And so that's why we really want to work with landlords and encourage them to have their tenants apply. And there's no limit, and we're happy to reach out to anybody who may be in need of a little extra help.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I think we're stressing the landlords. There are so many, landlords that they're paying their mortgages based on tenants paying their rent. So we have these, smaller landlords that are looking at these dollars and being able to help them maintain their properties and a place for folks to reside. So I think encouraging the landlords. And what I like about this program also is that you're not talking about months and months of delay of getting money into the hands of the landlords and into the hands of the people that need it. So, this is really good about this ERAP program.
I think that's a really great point. I think what's really unique about this is that if the landlord charges utilities as part of rent or even separately, we can pay those. So let's say I'm the landlord and I bill separately for invoices to my tenant, but I still owe SMECO directly. The landlord would get the past due money for SMECO. So we can help with that utility as well. And one of the nice things is if you have a tenant who you notice is becoming later and later with rent, we can evaluate them to approve 3 months advance rent that will pay monthly, but for 3 months. And that way, and then they can reapply in 3 months if things haven't changed. But that way there's a guaranteed revenue source, so we'll send it directly, and you can take that stress off your tenant, but also off of you for trying to make those bills meet up. Do we have any other questions or comments? One thing that I would say for landlords is that if your tenant's already been evicted or has chosen to vacate the property, it gets a little bit difficult to provide assistance to you or the client or the tenant, and the tenant would have to reach out to us directly requesting that assistance. So it's really, really important to work with your tenants before you reach a stage where they might leave or where you might be asking them to leave with a legal notice, so that we can help them get caught up and you caught up, and that they're in good standing and perhaps they can stay, or that they're more likely to be successful in another location.
Let's talk about, Jacqueline, let's talk about that tenant, unfortunately, that didn't get through the program and was evicted and now is trying to find other housing, but this past debt is actually kind of a barrier to them getting other housing. How does that help?
If that happens, what really helps is having a letter from the landlord saying what that past due rent is, and then having a letter, if possible, from a future landlord saying that the reason why they were denied is because that past due rent debt. And that is a case where we could help pay those arrears, that past due rent, especially because at that point it'll be the client requesting it. And that always creates a more successful and easier to approve application. So if you do have a client or a tenant who's evicted, and let's be realistic here, people who are evicted over the past year usually weren't evicted for failure to pay. They were evicted for tenant holding over or breach of lease or some other reason, or they chose to leave. So they won't have that failure to pay eviction hearing hanging over them. But they could have a challenge with the past due debt trying to relocate to a new unit, and that's where we can come in and help. Do we want to talk at all about what kind of documentation might be needed to apply? I know that filling out this form is pretty easy. We just ask for your name, address, how much rent you're behind, and what you need help with, as well as your contact information. It's really important to leave your contact information. We unfortunately had a few people fill it out without their contact information, and that makes it a lot more difficult for us to get information to you. But we'll, of course, mail it. But other items that you'll be asked for are documents to help prove eligibility, so to help prove that you were impacted by COVID, whether that's a letter from your employer or proof from your finances that you had increased expenses or something like that. And we also, I mentioned that there's landlord certification forms. We kind of ask how many people in your household, are you a veteran? So some demographic information. But those questions are not just our willy-nilly interest. That is required by the state and the federal government for these applications. And if you need help getting documentation, that's where our agencies and experts can help you figure out where you need to get stuff, what it looks like. So you're not in this alone. People are here to help you and kind of coach you along the way. And let's say you don't have COVID impact, but you need rental assistance, right? You're like, I wasn't laid off. I don't think I had increased expenses, but it's hard and times are tough. Well, the good news is that rental assistance has been happening for years. It's just been a little bit more hyped up because of COVID and the increased need. But that's why you want to reach out to these agencies, and you can fill out this form as well, and we'll refer you to them. But they can look at other funding sources that are more traditional rental assistance that can be helpful for you. There's still help.
Jacqueline, a question I have, if once the customer applies and we submit all the documentation, who will they call for follow-up? in regards to where they are or getting a status of their application?
Yeah, so you should be able to see once you submit an application to the county, lifetime status updates as an agency provider. We'll always confirm when the application's been received, when the review is complete, and when it's been forwarded to finance for payment and when it's been paid. So you receive 4 updates from us. And it's the agencies can choose to share that with the landlord or client. But if they call us, that 410-535-1600, extension 88, sorry, that's my number, 410-535-1600, extension 2460. We can provide them with a status update once it's been submitted to the county. If it hasn't been submitted to the county yet, they would have to follow up with you directly. So if you need a status update as an agency, the best thing to do would be to comment on that customer's ticket, or to reach out to me directly and I can give you a real-time update. But I can say that the application that we have received, we've been trying to process them within 2 days and then make payment within a week and a half. But I can't guarantee that that will always be that way once the volume's up and running. Is there anything as agencies that you'd like
Jacqueline,
clients to know if they apply?
Ray is trying to.
Yeah, great. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Hi, Jacqueline. So one question and maybe comment to help those that are trying to move if they're no longer able to stay in the current unit is that this funding could help them move to another unit, and it doesn't specifically have to be in Calvert County. But if they find an available unit, as long as that landlord is willing to sign the certification form, then we can use these funds to help them transition. And it also can include the moving costs. So if they need help with a storage fee, if they need help with moving company, these funds will allow for some of that flexibility for those services.
Correct. And I think that can be really helpful. We can look at assessing the 3 months future rent for a new unit if that's needed. And there's funding available through this and other programs as well for security deposits and those sort of items. So definitely it's a good time to apply and just see what you're eligible for if you are in a position where you need a little help. And I think one thing is when people see that there's income eligibility criteria, they think they might not qualify. But due to the high area median income in Calvert County, many households do qualify for assistance. So it is always worth checking out. The worst thing that's going to be happen is that you might be told, no, you're not eligible, but you're in the same situation you were in before. The best thing that's going to happen is that you are eligible for some sort of assistance that could help ease your day-to-day finances.
You know, Jacqueline, I think sometimes when we're talking about the amount of rent that can be the rental assistance and even the back payment as well as 3 months forward, sometimes changing this into a dollar amount will get the attention of people more so than looking at months.
Exactly. We've paid rent from $200 to over $25,000.
Right.
And that's why it is not, there's no qualifications of how many times you can apply and how much money you can apply for. The only time there is a dollar limit is for that moving expenses and the other expenses. But for the rent and utility assistance, there is no dollar cap. It is time. So that's why it's up to 12 months of past due or 3 months of future at a time for a total of 15. And I understand that that is horribly difficult to figure out in your head. And that's why it's best to call somebody, because we can help you figure out what your max eligibility would be. And there's most likely future funding coming for this program. So applying today for your max, you may be eligible again by the end of the year, depending on what the government comes out with for assistance programs and rules.
And I think that's just trying to reiterate that to folks as they're watching this or as we're getting other information out. I know we have the months here, but realize that what we're saying is that you can pay anywhere from $200, like you're saying, and have paid up to $25,000 that's a lot of money to be able to help people get out of a hole that this pandemic may have put them in.
Exactly, because I would say the average rent in Calvert County is probably between 1,000 and 1,500. I've seen up to 1,800, so 1,500 times 12 months times 3 months in the future. That's a lot of money,
That's
plus
a
your
lot of money.
utilities. And right now we have $2 million almost that we can spend. And so it's great to get in the front of the line, especially since you can reapply every 3 months,
Mhm.
because that will really help us as we go forward and help you.
And just as you said, if you're not eligible, you're still in the same situation you were. But if you are eligible, look what can happen and what you can do with the funds and how you can jumpstart your life again, if you think about it. Having had 10 to 12 months in arrears and dealing with that over your head, and being able to be pulled out of that and get back on your feet. This is fantastic for any family to be able to do that. So this is really tremendous at this point.
Right, and that's why we want people to apply now, because by the end of this month, that's when failure to pay rent evictions are really going to happen. And we want to help you before you're in crisis, because it does not change the level of service you're going to get. It does not change the dollar amount of assistance you're going to get. If you have past due rent tomorrow, and then in 2 weeks you have an eviction notice, you'll get the same amount of rental assistance prior to the emergency and at the emergency point. But we have more time to help you and assess you for 3 months and keep you in your unit if you apply ahead of time before you're in court. So that can really help. And if you do have an eviction notice and you're trying to apply, and for some reason you go to court, we can help you prove that you're applying for this assistance to help you stay in your unit as well. Once you make a home, you want to stay there, and we're here to help you realize that and help that be true for you and your family. So that's what's really unique about this program.
Jacqueline, if you have a two-parent household and one parent stayed home to watch the child and the other one was affected, income was affected, and it just slipped a little bit, because one parent stayed home when they could have worked, are they still eligible for this financial assistance?
If they're income eligible, which most one income households in Calvert County would likely be, and if they, they had increased expenses due to COVID, or the one primary income earner for some reason had decreased hours, like let's say during that 2 week stay-at-home period, they weren't getting paid, then yes, they would most certainly be eligible. Your choice in job, whether both parents or partners work, or if one's at home and a caregiver, and staying at home to be a caregiver during COVID was a way to help mitigate the spread of COVID, and that is being recognized by the state and the federal government. So I think most certainly they would be eligible to apply.
Okay, thank you.
And even if someone had a reduction in hours, income, that's been a big one. So like I know that some contract agencies did a 20% cut across the board. If you had to hire a private tutor or nanny for your student because the schools were closed, but you still had to show up to work, let's say you're a nurse and you still had to go to work because you're an essential worker, we can look at all of that and make the best assessment for what's right for you. Do we have any other questions or comments? We can maybe head towards closing the chat. But I just want to make sure we answer everything and kind of end it with what people should do if they need help. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating today, especially I'd like to thank Lifestyles of Maryland and Southern Maryland Tri-County Community Action Committee. They've been working with us for months and months and months on end, helping citizens of Calvert County. We've processed nearly 100 applications for assistance for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to help those who need it the most, and to help those who just need a little help one time, or those who need help every 3 months. We're here to provide the assistance that you need. So if you need help, the best thing to do would be to visit www.calvertcountymd.gov/rent-help or call 410-535-1600 extension 2460 to speak to someone and apply for rental assistance. You'll be asked to complete an initial assessment that's just basic information such as your name, where you're residing, your landlord's name, and how to contact you and what you need help with. And then a caseworker will be in contact with you within 3 days to a week to answer your questions, to get you started. And you'll be able to review the application materials necessary so you're well prepared and you know what comes next. Would anyone else like to say anything, or just a bye from everyone? A good evening. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining. It's always a pleasure. We're happy to help and be of service for everyone. Keep safe.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you,
Thank
Thank you
you,
very
Jack.
much. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.